one of the most powerful things that we use, and I'd love to hear you talk about it, because it's been one of the most challenging things that I have is, all right, you hire somebody super talented, you want to see them perform amazingly. They want to perform amazingly. So you start to give them stretch projects, you start to pull on them. And sometimes you break them, or you push them too far, or you don't push them enough. And I love your analogy of the rubber band. In that. So I guess my question here would be, as a multiplier, we need to challenge people to get their best work. How far do we know to challenge people, and what's the balance between challenge and comfort, and what would your advice on that be?
Let me grab a rubber band.
Cool.
So Rich, you asked about the rubber band, and I love the rubber band metaphor so much. I keep a bunch of these green rubber bands laying around. In fact, like my cats love them because they're all over my house. But I find that the best leaders are challengers. They're not just encouraging, supporting, trusting, empowering kinds of leaders. And in some ways, that part of the anatomy of a multiplier leader, like that part of the anatomy gets a lot of press, so to speak. Like right now, people are very focused on how do you be this kind of empowering leader. And I think what we often under-realize is that the leaders who actually command our best thinking and best work are not what my publisher calls cupcakes and kisses leaders, that they're demanding, they have high expectations, they ask us to do hard things, they ask us uncomfortable questions. They're leaders who have become comfortable watching other people be a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I actually find this is something that tends to hold back really well-intended leaders. Like they want to be the nice guy, they want to be popular with their team, and they can very much fall prey to the nice guy that never really pushes. And people actually find them nice, but entirely diminishing. Like, yeah, you know what? He asked me how my weekend was, but he never asked me to do hard things. So the best leaders are serial challengers. And, I think of this in terms of the rubber band, which is like, what is the point of uncomfortable stretch? I guess I have to probably go back here a little bit. Like, where do you get tension that feels like you're just about to break? And, I think this is really important self-knowledge for a leader to have. Like, are you by nature, by habit, are you an understretcher or an overstretcher? So there's a lot of leaders who give people work like this. Hey, Liz, I need you to do this. Can you do that? And they're all things that are in my wheelhouse. They're things I've done before. And so, you ask them to do this. There are other leaders who are all challenger. Like they create stretch, but they don't create safety.
Okay.
For people to stretch. And they stretch people so hard that one of three things probably happens. Either that person just like lets go and says like, whatever, that's it's like a challenge or a goal set with bravado. Like, I don't know what you're smoking, whatever, like, and they still show up to the meeting, but the tension's not there. People have given up because they know it's ridiculous. Or there are people who rescue, like they ask someone to do something hard, and it's, they see people struggling, and they, out of the goodness of their heart, they say, okay, maybe I asked you too much. Maybe we can't really get 20% growth in that market. You know what, let's back that down to 15. Or, oh, you know what, maybe we can't get that done this month. Just get it done whenever. Or what they do is they break people, and they ask people to stretch to an irresponsible level, and people break.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling, probably, Rich, where you would say that for me, I am more prone to be an overstretcher than an understretcher. Like I hate being micromanaged, and I hate being underutilized. And so I want to be asked to do really hard things. And I assume falsely that everyone else wants to be asked to do things that are as ridiculously hard as I might. And so, I mean, it's kind of word on the street, but anyone who's worked with me, I think one point someone asked a colleague of mine, Ben, hey, what's Liz like to work with? And he said, you know what, she'll stand back and let you fail. And he said, she'll ask you to do things that are so hard, it's going to feel painful at times. But he'd also say, but I grow. but I really grow. I've learned this about myself. I've broken people. In fact, I'm not necessarily proud of this, but one of the people that I broke professionally was my mom. Like, who does that? Who does that? I was asked by a publisher if I would write a version of multipliers for educational leaders.
Okay.
And I first declined it for a couple of reasons. And they asked again. And as they kept asking, they said, oh, well, we get you a ghostwriter. I'm like, oh, I don't want a ghostwriter. They said, hey, we get you an education expert, someone who really understands education. I said, I don't need an education expert because my mom is an education expert. She's a former special ed teacher, a former principal. And I'm like, oh, my mom knows this really well. So I invited my mom to write this book with me. And I was thinking this is going to be this fantastic mother-daughter project. And I think my mom is brilliant and one of the most capable people I know. And so I pulled her out of retirement and said, okay, Mom, here's how it's going to work. And I started just giving her all these big, complex things to do. And at one point, she was so overwhelmed with this that she kind of went into an anxiety attack. And at one point, I called her like, Mom, how are you doing today? And she's like, well, Elizabeth, I can't even type because my hands are shaking. So it was out of my belief that she was smart and capable and could figure all this out, which is really a multiplier belief, that I ended up sizing this piece of work and this challenge for her too big. And I should have realized, oh, okay, I'm pulling her out of retirement. She doesn't know all of this new technology and these research and editing tools. I should have sized it just a little bit, not this, but maybe this, and then built up that capability. Breaking people is diminishing. Yeah. I was not proud of this moment, and I realized that the irony of diminishing my co-author while we're writing a book about being a multiplier. But I think what's important is knowing where do you tend to err. For some people like me, we have to learn how to size it down where it's a comfortable stretch. For other people, they need it to be a little more uncomfortable, not for the person, but for them. Instead of giving out safe, predictable work, like, ask people questions you don't have answers to. Ask people to do things you don't know how they're going to get them done. Like, stretch yourself.